Mission work started in Chile in the 1950s. Something odd in the mission work in Chile. So there's some early success, the establishment of a couple congregations, and then some of the missionaries go to the United States on a furlough, and they return to find that most of the members of the churches that they left had become Pentecostal. Right? So in that short amount of time, and in fact, one of the other missionaries, one of the ones that stayed, is responsible for leading them into Pentecostalism. So just an odd change. Everything seems to be on. We leave, we come back. Right? A change had taken place. World Bible School was effective here. World Bible School had kind of started with a focus on Africa, but was used in South America as well. Getting to places where missionaries were not in existence, or where missionaries were not, or getting into places where it would be difficult for missionaries to get to. And often, because of the number of missionaries, sometimes missionaries from one country ended up traveling to other countries to baptize students. So, there's efforts here, but the number of people on the ground to support it was sometimes a challenge. Another institution that was useful in evangelizing in South America was World Radio. World Radio broadcast missionary messages to Bolivia to try to evangelize. It was started by the Whites Ferry Road Church of Christ in West Monroe, Louisiana. That is the church home of several of the people in the Duck Dynasty clan, if you know that show. They created a radio program in the 50s to broadcast messages using radio to evangelize. Herald of Truth was also used, if you remember Herald of Truth from our discussions about institutionalism. Christian missionaries from the Churches of Christ moved into Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela throughout the 50s and 60s. They faced challenges like all missionaries do, but some challenges were different in South America. For example, due to the violence from drug dealers in the 1980s, all the missionaries from Churches of Christ left Colombia, which essentially kind of left the national evangelists to kind of continue the work. A family of missionaries was threatened. The country of Colombia was just a very, very violent place with all sorts of drug cartels and everything going on in the 1980s, and still some of that today, but not as bad as it was in the 80s. There's also been a lot of work done in Central America. Guatemala appears to be the first country targeted in 1959. 5 churches were established in the first year of work in Guatemala. The missionaries there used correspondence courses, evangelistic campaigns to try and reach people. The establishment of local national preachers, though, was a big help to the work, and those preachers would go on to convert thousands and establish 25 additional congregations. El Salvador and Honduras followed soon after. Here too, the use of correspondence courses, the use of campaigns was successful. Similar type of situation as what we've seen in other places, where there would be nationals who would go to preaching schools in the United States and then come back and evangelize. Sunset School of Preaching, now the Sunset Institute of Biblical Studies, I believe it is. Sunset International Bible Institute is what its name is now, was one of those where a lot of people from Central America would go, located in Texas, and so they would go be educated for a couple years and then return to their countries. Work in Panama started in the 1940s. Other works in Belize, Costa Rica, Nicaragua developed. Some of these works, these later works that I mentioned, were due to missionaries from the United States. Others were due to local individuals who became evangelists. Encountered some preaching someplace, and just kind of took it upon themselves to evangelize. Additional activities, in addition to evangelizing and preaching, you have print ministry, radio and TV broadcasts, short-term mission campaigns. A lot of the universities and colleges associated with Churches of Christ have traditionally had a variety of mission campaigns by students. Many of them have focused on South America. Some have focused on Africa, but there's been a lot of attention to South and Central and South America, all in an attempt to try and reach these people that are in these locations. And so that gives us kind of this overview of the expansiveness of Restoration Movement mission work, going to a wide variety of places, some more successful than others, some that were set up through kind of an institutional approach, some that were more independent. But missionary work has been one of those things that has been a distinct marker or a difference, largely due to the institutionalizing of missionary work among the disciples. So that brings us to a conclusion here of the Restoration Movement. Where we go from here now is to kind of think about the contemporary situation of Christianity, as well as what the future holds for mission work. And so in later sessions, we'll start looking at some of those kind of questions.